Hey guys, so I really wanted a brown sugar recipe for the holidays, but I couldn't find anything I liked. So this video is kind of me just winging it, but you know what? It turned out great. My mom actually said it was her favorite. So first I took a cup of brown sugar, light brown sugar, and then I used 4 tablespoons of heavy whipping cream because basically brown sugar is really gritty and I wanted to soften it up. I thought it would make sense to use the heavy whipping cream because that's the liquid that I use in my frosting anyway. I put this on a very low heat setting because sugar caramelizes and I didn't want that to happen. And actually this whole process took about 10 minutes, so expect it to be on the heat for a while. I also thought it would be good to stir the entire time it was on the heat because again, I just didn't want anything to caramelize. At this point, my thought process was, okay, this is going to need to be the liquid because it has that 4 tablespoons of whipping cream, which is what I use, standard in my frosting recipe. So I was looking at it and I was like, this doesn't really look very liquidy. So I thought about what I could do and I decided to add some butter because that's another ingredient in my frosting. I started with 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter and that worked out great. So I kept it at that. Just a heads up that this is going to take a while to melt because I think my stove setting was, I think it was on just level 2. I also love cinnamon and I thought it would kind of enhance the flavor and make it taste even more like the holidays, so I sprinkled some cinnamon into the mix. I didn't really measure it, but it's something that you could add more of later, so if you want to start off with a little less, that's fine. But also at this point you can see that this is more of a liquidy paste, so the butter worked well. And then I also added nutmeg, just a little bit. My thought process here was that I used this in my pumpkin spice frosting and it tasted really good. You can see that the butter's still not melted, but like I said, that's going to take a while. I told you that I love cinnamon, and I was just thinking about how this is going to mix with powdered sugar, and I thought I should add a little bit more. I believe this part's important. When you see a little bit of bubbling on the edges, that means it's done. It's starting to get darker, which means it's caramelizing. So I took it off the heat and let it chill to room temperature. Now, I pretty much made this the same as my regular frosting, so it's 4 sticks of unsalted butter. We're going to pop these in the microwave because I took them out of the fridge. I never remember to make them room temp, and that's probably a little more soft than you need, but whatever, it's fine. We'll want to use the paddle attachment here. Always start on low, and as it begins to incorporate and mix together, you can increase the speed. If it matters, the longer you whip it, the more white it will be, but for this frosting, we're adding that brown sugar anyway. I let it mix for a couple minutes. Alright, butter looks pretty good, so let's plop in that brown sugar mixture that we made, and again, start on low and begin to mix it in. I kept increasing the speed as it began to incorporate, and my thought process here was that brown sugar is gritty. I wasn't sure if it was completely softened or if it even can be completely softened, so I was hoping that the more I mixed it, it might just break down that grit. So I whipped it for a while. I'd say I did it for maybe 4 minutes. Remember to scrape down your bowl as you go. I use clear vanilla extract, which just doesn't change the color of your frosting, but regular vanilla is fine too. I added 2 teaspoons. My regular frosting has 4, but I was thinking that it has that brown sugar in there and it's already a little sweet, and we're not going for a vanilla flavor, we just want to enhance what we have. I always add salt to my frosting. I typically use table salt. I don't know if this is much different, the iodized sea salt, but it worked fine. And here's how much I did. I didn't really measure, just sort of sprinkle it in there. It's something that you can always add more of at the end if you think it needs it. And then we're going to use 6 cups of powdered sugar. My regular recipe is, I think, 7 cups, so what I did was just removed the extra from the bag and then poured the bag in. Always start with a low setting with powdered sugar, or you're going to end up with a poof, a whole cloud. At this point, I also decided that I wanted a more of a whipped frosting because I kind of wanted it to be light and fluffy and melty. So I'm working the speed up and I am just continuously whipping. I think I honestly spent about 10 minutes whipping this together. Remember that you can always adjust the texture by adding more liquid. So again, the heavy whipping cream, I put a little bit more in there until I got it to be the right texture for me. There we have it. My mom said this was the best frosting she ever had. It was super melty and light and fluffy, and I used it on cupcakes that I brought to Thanksgiving. The last thing I want to say is that I know some people might be frustrated that I didn't put exact measurements for things like the cinnamon, but frosting really is something you just need to taste as you go and pay attention to the texture. You can't really get it wrong, so I hope this helps.